Akasha causes things to happen. Welcome to 60 Skills. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the power of the void. Now, the power of the void, or Akasha as it is commonly known, that deep purple penetrating energy that's frequently associated with the power center above your head, literally causes things to happen. It is a part of what is sometimes called the causal realm. Okay, this is interesting. What does this really mean? Well, in conventional metaphysical practice, the use of Akasha is associated with a couple of different important things. One, Kundalini phenomenon, that rising of latent sexual energy up the spine, out the top of the head that allows you to have access to the power of the void. Fair enough. But what else can Akasha do? Well, for those of us who are familiar with magic, or the power of the letters, it's well known that you can pull any energy out of the void or the Akasha. Now, this is subject to a couple of limitations. One, the version of that energy that you get will be directly related to your understanding of what that energy does. And this is an important point that gets left out. So it's a lot like taking exogenous testosterone. It's testosterone, and it's biochemically the same as what is produced by your body, but it's not an exact fit for what the body does itself. So the kind of force you pull out of the Akasha will be slightly limited in that regard. It won't be exactly the same as, say, elemental fire as generated by a volcano in the environment that you're walking around in. Not a huge difference, and it generally doesn't matter depending upon what you want to do, but there is a difference there. Also keep in mind that working with the Akasha is draining upon your vital force or your just vitality in general. This is fairly well understood by most practitioners, but in application, it can be a little difficult. Now again, because this energy is draining upon your vital nature, ultimately, that draining is the main limitation on how much Akasha you can work with. Okay, good to know. Now, this whole thing of Akasha being the cause of things, though, this is the part that doesn't get discussed a whole lot. See, here's the thing. When you're working with Akasha, you have to work with it enough to have power and strength and resistance to it, which takes time. That said, the tricky part is maintaining your focus inside the Akasha, because the Akasha itself is slightly narcotic in nature, kind of loosens things up, dissolves things out, makes you feel very relaxed and a little dopey. The problem with this is because everything that exists, the one and the zero, the yin and the yang, the 10,000 things, all spring out of the Akasha, it is possible to generate things while in the Akasha. Now, if you're very focused on what you want to generate, fine, no big deal. But again, remember that slightly narcotic nature of Akasha. This is what tends to get people in trouble, because they lose their focus. That Akashic energy, which is the energy of pure potential, important part to remember, latches on to some random thought in your mind, and the next thing you know, you're generating some random thing. And I've seen this be fairly destructive to people. This is also the reason why doing your watching thoughts exercises, meditating on vacancy, clearing your mind out, being in control of your behavior, and avoiding intoxicants are so important when you choose to work with Akasha. Because if you're not careful with it, you can end up generating something that ultimately isn't very good for you. And this seems to be much more common than most people want to let on. So again, remember, the Akasha is the realm of causes. It is that potential that is capable of becoming any one of the 10,000 things that they talk about in Taoism, for example. This is very, very important. Let's talk about some of the other things you can use Akasha for, and I've discussed this on the channel before. One of the important things about working with Akasha is once you have access to your own Akasha, esoterically, you're basically an adult. And the big reason for this is Akasha allows you to dissolve things. Specifically, when dealing with spirit entities, they become very respectful once you have access and control over your own Akasha. Why? Well, when you do have access to your own Akasha, you have the ability to dissolve their various subtle bodies. These subtle bodies, in turn, are what allow them to manifest in the here and now. So it essentially acts like a big stick, because if you dissolve those bodies, it's apparently very hard for them to come back here without a direct invitation from another practitioner, which, believe it or not, is a lot less common than most people realize. In fact, if done properly, and you're dealing with a near-Earth entity, you can often hear a vacuum sound, this kind of popping sound that happens if you impact the entity with Akasha, as it literally gets ripped out of this frame of reality and thrown into wherever it comes from. Again, you can't really kill these things, but you can make it very difficult for them to get up to trouble again. Now, there is one very important exception to this, and this is true demonic entities or entities associated with Saturn or the Akashic powers. They're going to laugh this off. In my practice of Kabbalah, the EN letter combination can allow you to banish these entities, but it's not generally something most people have much skill with, so you need to be careful with that. Again, fortunately, the truly demonic are very, 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 very rare. So, all right, what else can we use Akasha for? Well, as I just mentioned, Akasha is very dissolving. Now, this is a two-edged sword. You know, most people look at dissolving things as a good thing. Well, it can be if it's something bad that bothers you or a bad habit. But Akasha dissolves, period. So this can also dissolve good things, or things that you've built up in your life and basically leaving you unanchored. In fact, one of my teachers frequently tells a story about how when he deep dove one particular kind of Akasha for 2 hours a day for a year, it basically left him unmoored and without a goal in life for the better part of a decade. So keep in mind, dissolving and letting go of things isn't always a positive at the end of the day, which leads to our next. Akasha is ultimately the power of karma, pure, unadulterated karma. And as we just talked about, dissolving things like karma isn't always a good thing, because you can dissolve away those good things that you've built for yourself. And long term, this can make your practice in life rather difficult. So Akasha is, at the end of the day, a sign of true development. You know, you're working at the master level, basically, once you have control of that. It also puts you right next door to non-dual light, so it's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from that enlightenment state. As such, it is a very important tool. But that's the part that I want to leave you with here. It's a tool. It's not enlightenment itself. It's that stage directly before that. It's something you can pull things out of, which is great if you're trying to manifest things, but it's not those things proper. And oh, by the way, it's really hard on your life force. So a lot of people become fascinated with Akasha once they can work with it for very good reason. But keep in mind its limitations and the fact that it's not everything it's made out to be, and can be a little dangerous to the uninitiated or the unwary. So, if you enjoyed the topic of today's discussion, go to SixtySkills.com and check out some of the other things we have to offer. Otherwise, as per usual, train hard and be well.